Oh, Seven Citizens, Black here from Casa Black Gaming, and today I wanted to go over the most recent roadmap development update additions, and also to review what items were worked on or completed for November, and what we can expect CIG to be working on for December. This breakdown will be longer than my usual videos, but I think it provides a good opportunity to get to know what's being worked on each month, and what might have changed, and to pinpoint when we can expect things in game. Now, if you like this breakdown, then please let me know down in the comments below, and as usual, please do all of the things that can help a channel grow, as I do appreciate it. And so with the intro finished, let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. Now, since this will be a monthly series, I will cover any additions that were added over the last 2 roadmap updates. Usually there were only a handful of items that are added most weeks, so I think this monthly cadence will work nicely. Since we're just coming off the IAE event, it was no surprise to see from the November 23rd roadmap update that the Drake Cutter and Anvil C8R Pisces were added to the release view. We also got salvage hole stripping and the Grey Cat multi-tool salvage attachment tool added as committed to the 3.18 update that's upcoming, so it's always nice to see when things get committed just to alleviate any concerns that something might get stripped away due to some issues within Evocati. This week's December 7th roadmap update brought us 5 new items that were committed for 3.18, making it even more likely that we're close to getting a first PTU build. The Drake Vulture cargo system refactor, time trial race missions, of course persistent entity streaming, and Gen 12 renderer were all marked as committed. The committed list is looking insane right now and is sure to bring about so many new things to the verse. Alright, so now let's take a deeper look at what was worked on in November. For those of you following along, I open up the progress tracker, which I have linked down below, and then I go over the items that show work that was actually done for the month. A couple of notes here about anything worked on for either the current or next month is that of course anything can change, and this video will try to point out those changes as they're realized. Another point I like to make is that even if the same team is scheduled to work on something, most often those team members are sharing their time across many different deliverables, and their time is not solely spent on just one item. You can hover over any of the striped bars and this is explained there. Also, just because something on the tractor shows that its time has come to an end does not guarantee that it is indeed gameplay complete or that it will arrive in the very following update. The current end date cap seems to be June of 2023, so if something shows that it's scheduled to be done in June of 2023, that probably means it could be pushed out once that date moves forward, which I expect to see that by the next month, so expect next month's updates to reflect all those changes. I will for now still give that June date until we know better. So to begin with, we had work that ended in November for the Asiato station, which will be in Squadron 42. This work stretched across 6 teams starting way back at the end of February 2021 and does not show any more work being done. This station manufactures and maintains communication equipment, so this seems like it will be a heavily used place within the Squadron 42 side of things. Moving on, work continued on the aerodynamic control surfaces, which should change the maneuverability of thrusters and give some better performance, especially from ships that have weaker maneuvering and atmo, so here's hoping this might help the Corsair. That work only just began in August of this year and is scheduled through February of 2023. Next up, we have AI Untrained Combat, which is how civilian NPCs will react to a combat situation going on around them. The AI will instruct these NPCs to grab a weapon if available and try to defend themselves. This work that started way back in March of 2021 is scheduled to complete this month. Also in the realm of AI is AI Usable System version 2, which improves the current usable system to optimize memory usage and improve performance. So I'm assuming this means that when you go to heal yourself or use anything, that there might not be that laggy disconnect that can happen. This started in January of 22 and it finishes up in November. The last AI deliverable in this section is for AI Vehicle Perception, which started in August of this year and is scheduled to end the middle of this month, and it will give AI the ability to perceive and detect ground vehicles and ground-based targets when they are piloting their own using both vision and radar, which says to me that we should expect combat soon on the ground, which could really increase the value of vehicles like the Tonk or the Cyclones. The Anvil C8R Pisces was revealed on the deliverables per the earlier mentioned change and ended in November. November after having started its journey back in February of this year, so a quick turnaround which shows how easy it is for the teams to get variants out there, which I prefer to see over new concept ships. I have a ship loadout video for this ship, and my honest review is available to watch on my channel. Moving on, the AR and map marker system rework was worked on in November from work that started back in April of this year and is scheduled to be completed as of the first week in December. This should make our current map marker system work with building blocks, which we definitely need, as the map is one of the largest detractors for new players and old alike. Another Squadron 42 base was completed in November, that being the Archon station, which resides in the Coil. This work began in January 2021, and it's nice to see it was completed last month in November. The Arena Commander Classic Race Mode overhaul continued on from its started work back in July of this year and is scheduled to complete near the end of December. This overhaul will redo the checkpoints and race manager system and also improvements to scoring, as well as a complete rework of all 3 new Horizon Speedway maps and bring about a new map based on the Snake Pit, which was added into the PU recently. The Argo SRV vehicle continues its work, which will bring about the tugboat lifestyle I know many are eager for, and which will be needed once disabling ships becomes a thing with 318. Although this ship will not be ready in time for 318, I do imagine we will see it next summer once vehicle tractor beams are complete. Work has been ongoing for the ship since April of this year and will be complete in early February. Might we see it released without its major gameplay implemented? We shouldn't, but I know there are people looking forward to flying this just the same. So I guess we'll see what happens. Alright, Artificial Gravity continues its leap from concept to implementation, which began back at the end of September and will continue until June of next year. We got some early sneak peeks at it during CitizenCon, and it will add some new gameplay levels to ship and station combat when it arrives. New asteroid facilities that will offer different gameplay opportunities both in the interior and exterior of asteroids are being worked on, with work having begun in June of this year and going forward through the end of June next year. These handcrafted areas will bring new gameplay, but whether they are meant for Stanton or Pyro is the question I have. Maybe some of you can point me to the right info, because I swear I remember something about this being mentioned, but maybe not. The Banu Merchantman is still on the deliverable schedule, which after comments we heard in last month's Star Citizen Live Vehicle Team Roundtable, it seemed up in the air. Now don't get your hopes up just yet, as it still might get pushed back again, but for now it's still there and work progressed through November, and it is still slated to be done the middle of June of next year, so let's hope they continue to work on it and it keeps its release date. With all of the negative attention concept ships have had the past few weeks, I think this ship being released would add some goodwill towards those who were down in the dumps over concept ships at the moment. Bombs have been in since 3.15, but apparently more work has been ongoing to make them better, with the weapon content team continuing work that finally ends in December after beginning way back in January of 2021. Bounty Hunter version 2 is not the cool update we're all waiting for, where you'll be able to take prisoners, but this work is necessary to get to that point, so hopefully once its work is complete in March of 2023, we will be able to see Bounty Hunting Tier 3 pop up on the roadmap. This update makes it easier to track criminals in our Mobi-Glass, where they will get pinged when they fly in certain zones or are caught on cameras, which means players will not just be flying to a single pinpointed map location no matter how long they dawdle to get there. This work began in January of 2022. Building interiors to add more gameplay in cities around the landing zones is progressing, but not scheduled to complete until late June of next year, or maybe pushed back. This is work that began in February of 2021, so it's a big undertaking, and hopefully it will add some much needed depth to the cities and make players want to go there more. 318's cargo system refactor continued its work through November, with plans to finish pretty much any day now. It has also just been committed as of today's roadmap, so it's nice to see this Tier 0 implementation for a sure thing in the upcoming game-changing patch. The work for it began way back in January of 2021, so it's been a long time coming, but was waiting on persistent entity streaming. Cave Archetypes continued its work in November with a projected finish date of April 2023. Now, even though the work will be continuing, we will be getting to see some of that work in the upcoming 318 patch, as sand caves are confirmed to be in Evocati. The continued work will be for additional biome caves, so that should be interesting to see as this work continues, and I suspect we'll see some of that work in an Inside Star Citizen, probably after the new year, showing that progress. These caves have been in the work since March of this year, so some substantial work being done to improve an aspect of gameplay gameplay that will hopefully make the old caves obsolete, as they are riddled with meshing problems and just not very fun right now. All kinds of character work has been going on since March of 2021, and that work is scheduled to end this month. This includes art, animation, and AI behaviors. The Charge Drain Tier 0 work completed in November, which began in February of 2021. This system will allow for new gameplay with items that can drain or charge, which I'm not sure what this will entail, but I look forward to any new mission objectives that this will add. The Crusader Spirit work continued through November, which began its cycle back in July and is scheduled to be completed in June of 2023. I think this date seems likely, as this will probably be a ship sold during Invictus Week, so those who bought one of these variants will hopefully be flying at least one of them by then. Next up, we have Cutting Tier 2, which will allow the multi-tool cutting attachment to freeform cut through specific objects for things like mission objectives. This work began at the end of September and is scheduled to continue through May of 2023. This might lead to some new salvaging gameplay as well through similar tech, even though salvaging is not really mentioned here directly, but it does coincide with some of the next level salvaging, which I will touch on later in this video. More derelict spaceships are coming to planets, as we pretty much could guess once they made their debut, with different ship models being added to spice up variety. This latest deliverable began its life in April of 2021 and is scheduled to go until near the end of December. The Drake Corsair finished in November and was released to much hoopla. The ship was initially started in April of 2021. For more on this ship, you are welcome to check out my honest review. And speaking of cool Drake ships, the Cutter finished its secret development in November as well, after beginning its life in April of this year. This little starter ship has stolen the hearts of new players and old alike, and is another one I have a loadout and honest review for, so be sure to check those out. A developer tool, the Entity Properties plugin, was worked on through November with a planned finish time of the middle of December. This tool will decrease the iteration time of entities, which I can only assume means things will be easier with entities, which again, I have no idea how this tool helps, but better tools means less development time, so yay for that. This deliverable started in January of this year, so it's nice to see it coming to a close. EVA Tier 2 was worked on in November, and if you did not see this during CitizenCon, it was truly mind-blowing how much better we'll be able to traverse while out in space. This will also mean you no longer have unlimited EVA fuel, so I hope everyone will be ready for that. The work comes to a close late December, and it began in May of 2021, so yet another big project that's coming to an end soon. For all you players out there giving the devs flack, well, they are working on flak ammunition as fast as they can, and even though it will not be completed until the end of May 2023, and they started working on it near the end of July of this year, I expect it will be gameplay changing for FPS combat. So one of the things that's holding up better cargo in the verse is freight elevators, and the work continued through November, which began near the end of September. These elevators are going to make some of our cargo dreams a reality, along with ship tractor beams, so we're getting one more step closer to much better cargo gameplay. So on a different note, we had Frontier clothing being worked on through November, with that work scheduled to be finished by the end of December. That work began back in August of 2021. I cannot remember off the top of my head what these outfits are for, but they are for players and NPCs alike, and I assume that they are more a part of Pyro, since to me, that is truly the Frontier in terms of places to be, but we might see some of these in some Frontier type of outpost in Stanton as well, since the devs seem to be continuously adding new things to Stanton still. FS Tech Anim Asset Integration. Say that 5 times fast. FS Tech Anim and never mind. This deliverable is some behind the scenes file LOD optimization and fixes that started in April of 2021 and extends until December. Not sure what this will encompass, but backend stuff usually means better performance or visuals, so I'm hoping for the best, and like that, it's almost complete. The ever popular and hotly anticipated Gen 12 Renderer Tier 1 is pretty much completed this week and committed for 318 as of this week's roadmap roundup. This work has been 2 years in the making, and thanks to the ever awesome Sylvan for keeping us all up to date on where this stands and how it will work. You can tell that he and the team who have been working on this are super proud, and I'm looking forward to it, as well as the future where Vulcan will soon be coming. You guys remember hacking, right? We've had some brief glimpses at it in the past Star Citizen lives. Well, Hacking Tier 0 finished its work in November, which began in January of 2021. Will we be able to use it on the new Korea security outpost? I doubt it will be there, but I would expect it to be there soon. How long before we get shipped to station hacking? I mean, I don't even know why I'm even asking. Hex is a tool for the developers to view and manipulate real-time data from all microservices in the mesh. I don't know what that means. I only know it started back in January 2021 and finishes in December. That's another tool set for the devs and another long-term deliverable that finishes in December. So many people ask, how and when do we get to Pyro? Well, when jump points and server meshing are done. Jump points continued their work through November, work that started back in February 2021. For those at home counting, yes, that means next month it will have been in development for 2 years, but I suspect that it's one of those things that goes tandem with server meshing, so it's probably been worked on here and there as server meshing has moved up through the ranks. June is when this deliverable is set to finish, so you can expect Pyro sometime after that. Now let's see when we get to server meshing how that's going and how it lines up with this. Do you want to look around while climbing on ladders or fire a weapon or use tools or even dodge to the side? Well, a lot of games don't let you do this, pretty much since Danky King, but with the work completed in November for Ladders Tier 1, this deliverable should make its way into the verse very soon. That work began in April of this year. Now ships over the next year or two are about to become a lot more dynamic in gameplay, and Life Support Tier 0 will be a huge step in this direction. This is a deliverable that was started in April of 2021 and which will continue until June of 2023 unless it's pushed on. This deliverable will add the feature to ships that generates air for you to breathe and will be something that can be turned off in different compartments on larger ships. Remember that each system like this will add the ability to also be incorporated into various missions, so might we have a time mission where we fly out to a large ship and need to repair a ship before oxygen runs out, or cutting open a compartment to free the crew members all in a timed situation before they expire. This will help bring those types of missions into the verse. Alright, so lockable containers that can be unlocked with a key, forced open, cut, or hacked have been in the works since November 2021 and will be completed in March of 2023. I would expect hacking to definitely be in for this. The Lorville Cityscape revamp, which started in January of this year and was shown heavily in CitizenCon in October, has continued on its way and is another feature set to be done in March. It is definitely looking good and I'm looking forward to more gameplay there. One of my most anticipated deliverables made progress through November and is slated to finish in a week or two. What deliverable is that? I am of course referring to the map and radar system rework, which in and of itself deserves a hallelujah. This work began in April of 2021 and is another gangbuster feature coming to a close in December. MFDs on ships are getting reworked to utilize building blocks. Building blocks has helped out UI elements like the elevators, and with ships advancing in tech, this is needed. This work started in February 2021 and I'm looking forward to its completion in June of next year. I really wish I could just rip Van Winkle the next 6 months, but I've not eaten enough to get me through that kind of hibernation, and I'm not really into butt plugs. What cargo ship are you looking forward to? Is it the Hull C? Because if it is, you're in luck. The work for that continued through November from a starting point of March 2021, and it is scheduled to be done any day now. We probably won't see it until after the new year sometime, and remember that all of its features will not be implemented until next summer sometime, but I know it will be something people love to get their hands on. Just hoping the upcoming cargo changes bring back trade in a big bad way. Another huge UI improvement is coming sooner than we think, that being the Moby-Glass rework. We've seen some of it during CitizenCon, and the work that began in January of this year certainly seems to be paying off. The work finished in November, and I for one am stoked for this. Now, I made a video about the mop and bucket, which is what got me on this roadmap kick. Well, that work continued through November and it's not scheduled to be done until May of 2023. My only hope with this new feature is that the janitor who wields one of these turns out to be an insightful mission giver, similar to the groundskeeper Boothby in Star Trek. Don't you just hate it when you get yanked out of quantum travel by some pirates who try to attack you with their feeble little ship? Do you want more of that? No? Well, it's coming regardless. New interdiction scenarios have been in the works since June of this year and are scheduled to be done June of next year. I, for one, am looking forward to them and hope we get some decent options with it. There are some new missions on Orison that were worked on in November to turn the siege of Orison into something else when that event's not being run. This is the first line in more platforms that will stretch around Orison, giving us more to fly there for, or more to avoid flying there for, depending on your view of the gas giant as a whole. I do know that they made it faster to get in and out of the atmosphere for 318, so maybe it won't take 20 years to arrive or leave. These missions started in June and finished in November and are in Evocati now being tested, so expect them in 318. Your new players out there might get a break soon. A new player experience is being worked on to help those of you who enter the verse enjoy your first 30 minutes a little bit more. Besides, once you get on your ship and leave orbit, that's where the real fun begins. This little deliverable began back in June and will finish up in March, just in time for the influx of new players coming into the game for Invictus Week. Now, I do enjoy throwing shade every now and then, and this next dad joke is brought to you by the deliverable ocean shader improvements. We cannot go into the ocean yet, we cannot swim, yet the oceans will soon look better thanks to work that began in May of this year and finished up this very week. Origin's hoverbike, the X1, was worked on through November. It has been in the works since January of this year and is scheduled to be completed in June of 2023. A year and a half seems like a long time for a hoverbike, but I'm sure it's been delayed and not worked on that much, since it really is not offering up anything new that we do not currently have out there. Regardless, I look forward to seeing it around Invictus unless it gets pushed back beyond that. Outpost Homestead, Independent, and Outlaw is steadily being worked on, and that work continues from its start back in January 2021 through November and continues still until its end date of June 2023. These homesteads will be different than planet-side outposts we currently have because these will resemble small towns more so than a few outcroppings of buildings, and also will be the building blocks of player-built homesteads. Now, if ever there was a will we get it or won't we get it, it is salvaging. Wait, we're finally getting salvaging, so now it's persistent hangars. These hangars will give us our own little space and should also bring with it some interesting cargo enhancements and places to store some of our loot and decor. It's been in the works since May of 2021, if not before, and is scheduled to be available to us in May of 2023. With Pez currently committed in-game, we might finally actually get this, fingers crossed. Persistent streaming and server meshing are the two must-have features that everyone is waiting on. One of those things, persistent entity streaming or PES, was just committed for 3.18 today. That little bit of tech allows things to persist when you leave or the server shut down. We still need more work for this feature to be implemented fully across every feature in game, but the initial roadblock has finally been overcome. Server meshing is next and will be what makes the verse feel like a verse and should also allow us to end up back on a server that we signed out on. These two features began in December 2020. You guys remember December 2020, right? That COVID Christmas? Seems like long ago. Anyway, you can expect the server meshing aspect to be done. Drum roll, please. You guessed it, in June of 2023. Will it get pushed back a few months? Abso-freaking-lutely. My guess is fall to Christmas 2023. Also of note is that Pyro is waiting on this as well, so I think you can expect Pyro no earlier than spring of 2024. Some are guessing Q4 of 2023, but I doubt it considering Pez took them 3 months to get right. We'll see, I'd gladly be wrong on this. With salvaging and ships needing to be broke up, we need physical damage and breakability to be in the game, and better than it currently is. Great news! Its work continued through November from a start date of January 2021, and it ends in a week or so. Very good timing. Raise of hands here, who hated climbing rope in gym class? I think I did it once for some presidential fitness test thing in middle school. Anyway, I barely made it, but our characters will not have to worry about it, so why am I bringing it up? Because rope physics, which have been worked on since January of this year, is another deliverable that ends in like a week's time. These ropes will allow pulleys to do stuff and allow new gameplay mechanics, so not really rope climbing, but it kind of fits. Player interactions experienced tier 0, hints and interactions, is a mouthful and continued its work which started in January of 2021. It's going to improve player statuses within the game world, which to me sounds like it's needed for other cool things we're getting, like changes to the conditions on your ships and on stations, etc. Anyway, it finishes in March. Player interaction experience tier 2, visor, HUD, and helmet, is a feature that also finishes up in March and was steadily worked on in November. It began its work in February of 2022. This will change our HUD and has some nice equip, boot up, and power down sequences and switches whenever we go between FPS and ship HUDs, so this should be a good change and one that I welcome. The next deliverable is player-machine physical interaction, which are animations that show a player interacting with ship controls, and items which include the pushing of buttons, flicking of switches, and interacting with other areas of the cockpit. It also includes other machines and items, including locker doors, so when you click those doors on your ships, I'm guessing they won't just ghost open anymore, but your hands and arms will move to do it. The process began at the end of September and will be completed by the end of March. Players and NPCs becoming prone is something that is coming with Prone Tier 1, which began in September and set to also be completed in March. This should hopefully be the first step toward different NPC captures instead of just killing them. Basic Pyro space stations have been worked on since March of 2021, with that work moving forward through mid-February of 2023. We won't see them probably for another year, but it's nice to know they will be ready. Speaking of Pyro, the system planet and mission setup for that system continues its work from its first start date of January 2021, with an expected end date of March 2023. Now here's hoping this gives us plenty to do once we get to Pyro in 2024. The Matrix may not have us, but the quantum simulation, which has been in the works since 2019, continues its long journey to completion. Now this is Tony Z's brainchild, and with it will bring thousands of unseen simulated entities carrying our trade, commerce, piracy, and security to populate and inform the other game's systems. I advise you to go and watch last year's Tony Z's presentation to get a headache, but also to get some grasp as to what he's trying to pull off here. This thing will run the verse and it's going to be glorious. Its work is scheduled to end in June, maybe, which should be about the time we get another mind-bending video from our Lord and Savior. In Tony Z, we trust. Do you like how the quantum traveling currently looks? I mean, I kinda do. Well, CIG thinks they can make it look better, and they're probably right, so I'm on board with their quantum travel experience deliverable, which began its work in July of 2021 and ends in early February. It's also set to make quantum travel work better as well, which will be nice. We mentioned homesteading earlier, and this tool Raystar, which was highlighted recently on an Inside Star Citizen, is another tool that should make it easier for devs and players alike to place structures and have the ground around it form and change to suit it. Its development began in January 2021 and ended in November, so yet another long time developed tool that just came to an end. We've discussed a few important ship additions coming, but none are so big as the resource management deliverable, which will not only affect ships but stations, settlements, and cities. With it, you'll be able to manipulate power, fuel, shields, coolant, and everything that will make stations or ships turn into engineering gameplay giants. This system that also began work in January of 2021 will run through June of next year and probably beyond, and hopefully that date won't get pushed back too much, but with such a complex system, I'm sure it might. But still, I think due to how much is hinging on it, that it's not something we should expect to get delayed too far beyond that. So who is ready for the RSI links? Well, maybe not many are, but its work is coming along steadily and it is scheduled to be done by the end of February after a start date of July of this year. Salvaging Tier 0 is coming and actually finished its development in November and is committed for 318. Now Tier 0 is not what most people are excited about. That would be Salvaging Vehicle Munching, which started its work in October and will continue on until June of 2023 or beyond. By then, I'm sure we will all be tired of scraping holes, so it will not come fast enough. This feature will allow larger chunks to be removed from ships and then grouped up within the Vulture and Reclaimer, presumably for greater resale value or for more repairing options. Satellites points of interest are coming soon. This work began in May of this year and will populate the verse with explorable satellites for players. I don't know much about these, like size or what type of missions we might find there, but the deliverable is scheduled to be done by December's end, so hopefully we'll see it in 319. Security Network version 1 will implement the security system that will restrict players to certain access levels to be able to access certain doors or elevators. I can easily see this being tied to reputation, unlocking specific places as you get higher in rank. This work began in April of 2021 and finishes in June of 2023. Overall, pretty good stuff. Changes to Security Post Korea reactivation finished in November and are already in Evocati, and I believe it's committed. This work began in June of this year. This station will soon be the only way anyone can remove a crime stat illegally, and so expect this to be a hotbed for PvP activities and also bedlogging. Ship CPU allows various blades that can be used to modify or improve certain aspects of a ship's functionality, like unlocking more complex targeting abilities. I believe this is the first step in allowing NPCs to perform tasks on our ship, as blades are often mentioned as doing that. This work began in January 2021 and is another huge deliverable that ends in December. Space mines will be here months down the road. The work began in May of 2022 and is scheduled to end in May of 2023. Now, part of me feels like I will regret coming across these things, but I still look forward to them being in the verse. Squadron 42 vehicle support is a long deliverable that began its work back in January of 2021. It runs across 9 different teams, and its work is scheduled to be completed in June of 2023. It will polish various vehicles for the single player game and is much needed to get that game off the ground. Alright, so what did you need that you didn't know you needed? Well, the answer is more Stanton fashion clothing. Now, as for me, I don't currently wear outfits because changing outfits is a nuisance, so I just run around in my normal set of gear or my white jumpsuit. But if they implemented their closet idea where you can have preset clothing and armor configurations that you can just switch into with a switch of a menu, then I'd be into that. Until that arrives, I'm not. This feature began work in April of 2022 and finished the first week of December. So if you didn't know, words are important, but star words are even more important. This feature handles text localization within Star Citizen and Squadron 42, and its work began in March of 2021, and I believe with a recent ISC, we got to see some of the new employees who will be utilizing this tool, which is cool. Anyway, this work finished up in December, and I know that those around the world who speak different languages will definitely appreciate this. Subsumption Editor Integration is another tool that will allow the designers to quickly debug and set up subsumption logic. Its progress began in March of 2021, and so it's another large task that completed in December, making this month just such a blockbuster for items to be completed in. Moving on, who thinks Star Citizen has some of the best camera controls for in-game footage? Can it get better? You betcha, and that is what third-person camera V2 aims to do. The camera will focus its attention on ground vehicles this time around, which is a good thing that I'm looking forward to messing with. This work began in May of 2021 and is set to finish in March of 2023. Time trial race missions are coming in 3.18, but the work, which started in September of this year, is set to go into early March of 2023. Even though we're getting some time trials with 3.18, it looks like they have more to add for 3.19 or beyond. At CitizenCon, we were shown some new improved and more in-depth underground facilities. These began their work in April of 2021 and are scheduled to conclude in April of 2023. These facilities are going to change up how FPS bunkers are done, and I'm looking forward to them. You know what sounds sexy? Unified item ports. Alright, maybe not, but this will hopefully help our items and how they interact, especially when doing things like equipping things on our armor, or maybe even attachments run a lot better. Not really sure what this does entirely. This work started in July of 2022 and ended last week. Cargo needs vehicle tractor beams to do everything cargo needs to do. The good news is that they worked on it throughout November. The process began in October 2021. Now the bad news is it's not scheduled to be done until next summer. It says June, but we know it's probably not going to be June. We're all anxiously awaiting this huge part that will make the cargo refactor really something. AI is controlled by many things, one of those being Virtual AI Service. This feature began in June of 2021 and finished up in November. This will bridge the AI between Subsumption and Quanta AI. It's nothing fancy on the surface that you will see now, but later when Quanta gets in the game, it should play a part. So who likes energy assault weapons? Well, the Volt Parallax is coming and its work finishes next week. It started in January 2021. I have no idea what this weapon will do other than the fact that it's some sort of energy assault rifle, but hopefully this long dev time means it will spawn in a bunch of cool other weapons as well. It finishes soon, as in next week sometime. Alright, so I promise we're almost done with the list. Weapon misfire and wear is something that has been worked on since October of 2021. It is due to be completed by April of 2023. Now, I'm not a fan of wear in games unless you can repair and not have to replace, so I'm skeptical about this until we get more updates, but we'll see how it goes. And last but not least is the 0G push and pull, which goes along with the new EVA suit stuff we discussed and showed off earlier. This feature began work in January 2021 and is also scheduled to complete this month. Alright, so the last section of this video went over all the things currently being worked on, but what about the things that are supposed to begin this month in December? Well, let's quickly go over those before finishing up this video. I promise it's not much longer. A new Aopoa vehicle, the Santok Yi, began its work at the tail end of December and is expected to be completed sometime after the June 2023 cutoff, which could mean late next year or even 2024, so who really knows? And I do apologize for butchering the pronunciation of that. Who doesn't like to propagate distortion? I mean, I know I do. Anyway, work begins next week on that next iteration of distortion propagation damage and how it will disperse throughout a ship's systems depending on where the hit lands. Now, this really is exciting stuff, but the work is not to be finished before June of 23, so it could be a while. Physicalized weapon handling also begins at the end of December with an end date of February, which will work to make the animations look more tactile and high fidelity. Sounds good, I guess. Passengers Rejoice, the work to allow you to use items or smaller weapons while seated, aka seated item handling as a passenger, begins late December and goes through May. This could make for some fun times on ground vehicles. Alright, and that concludes this monthly roadmap deep dive. Now I hope you found this info helpful and easy to follow along with. For me, it gives me a better handle on what's in production and actively being worked on versus features that we kind of know about but are not sure of its current status and where it stands. I like staying informed, and I think this will allow me and even you to be able to slap down some useful info when someone says that something is or is not being worked on. It's also a little peek into how long something takes to create, especially ships, so we can better guess what will come in the future and how long they'll take. Anyway, let me know down in the comments which of these items you're looking forward to the most or which ones you wish they were working on. I'd love to hear from you all. Remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, don't lose hope on the Bano merchantment just yet, and stay positive citizens.